Hey there, guys. We're talking about Duel now, which is a bit of a double entendre as a title. It is Duel, D-U-A-L, like two, but also Duel, D-U-E-L, like it's a fight. Is that a homonym?
Sarah.
Hi there.
I'm sure you're familiar with the process. When you know you're going to die, you can have yourself cloned.
You have very clean skin. I like your shirt.
So Karen Gillan stars as a woman named Sarah who seems to be in kind of a funk, has kind of a not great relationship with her boyfriend and with her mother. And then, as though that weren't enough, discovers that she has a fatal illness. She starts like puking up blood at random moments. She is given Sarah's double, also played by Karen Gillan, who is observing her and trying to sort of like learn how to be her, winds up having much better relationships with the boyfriend and the mother than Sarah Prime does. And then it turns out that Sarah is in the 2% and isn't going to die after all. Well, oops, unfortunately, by the rules of this society, there can be only one. And so a year from now, Sarah and Sarah's double are going to have fight a duel to the death. So Sarah turns to a combat coach played by Aaron Paul to teach her the finer points in killing someone who looks exactly like her, and not wackiness ensues.
So this is the exact same premise as a movie called Swan Song that you and I meant to get to many months ago, not to be confused with the Udo Kier Swan Song.
This is the Mahershala Ali Swan Song.
Right, on Apple. It's the exact same premise where somebody is dying and they get a clone made to go and fill in for them and comfort their family and fit in seamlessly. But as you say, oops, things don't really necessarily go as easily as that. The tone here is completely different and the purpose is completely different. It is very darkly funny and intentionally chilly and stilted in its dialogue. One of our viewers who recommended that we reviewed this compared it to The Lobster. And I see that in that there is like an intentional kind of awkwardness in the way that everybody relates to each other, which I found really amusing. It takes place in our present day, but there's something slightly off about it in a way that reminded me of like Repo Man. And
they shot the whole thing in Finland.
It's shot in Finland.
Gives it a certain sort of sterile aspect. Finland is a beautiful country, but the way they use the landscape and the architecture and everything kind of really sucks everything dry.
There's a chilliness to the minimalism. There's like an emotional distancing, and just the way that people try to have conversations with each other about the simplest things. It ends up being so banal and so awkward and like hilariously so. Riley Stearns wrote and directed this. He also did a film recently called The Art of Self-Defense, which is also about people struggling to relate to each other. And in that film, you had Alessandro Nivola in the role that Aaron Paul plays here. He's like the sensei who is theoretically like all upbeat and trying to help you, but there's more going on there. I have to think that he's trying to say something about the way that we present ourselves to the world that is false, like the persona, the false persona we try to present to the world, and the struggle to achieve an authenticity and thereby have stronger connections with other people. I really liked the tone throughout this. Karen Gillan is great in two similar, but like she's got to make that differentiation clear to us. And the way that like the Sarah's double evolves is just dark and twisted and funny. So I was into this. There's one thing that is totally shocking and needless that took me out, but I really like this otherwise.
I didn't really get entirely behind this movie. And to me, it sort of felt like and I haven't seen any other Riley Stearns films, so I don't have a context here, but I felt like a lot of ideas were being introduced, but weren't being explored particularly. Like there's a whole thing about how these duels are televised and they're really popular. And so you think, okay, well, that's going to be some sort of like media statement or satirical thing about, our collective bloodlust or reality TV or something. And it's not really pursued ever. And I agree that Karen Gillan is really good. And the way she delivers this dialogue that feels like a machine that is learning to speak English, like that is funny and she does it really well. But overall, like the this kind of deadpan that everybody is doing in this movie made me miss Hal Hartley. Like I felt like this is the kind of thing he really knew how to nail well. And this movie just, I didn't quite get the point of things or why things were being so drawn out, or like for me, the chilliness kind of got in the way after a while in terms of, I don't know. I feel like it's a means to an end, and I don't feel like we ever got to whatever the end was that Stern was going for. So like I admire the execution or the attempt, but I don't think the execution quite nails it.
I think the end was just to, as I said, like highlight how we don't know how to connect with each other. And so he takes that to an extreme by having them all speak in this really forced, awkward dialogue.
I had this sense of like, this is the movie that it's trying to be, and it's not ever really filling in those parameters. It wasn't the movie that I wanted it to be, just I was giving it the benefit of the doubt of where it was going, and it never, I don't know, it didn't arrive for me, but there are people who are digging this movie, so obviously I think it's going to be divisive. You should check it out.
It's pretty merciless, I gotta say. Like, I don't think it's trying to say anything that's heartwarming or inspiring.
Oh, sure,
like,
no, and I'm fine with that.
The tone is black to its core to the end, and I admire that part of it.
What misanthropy? Tell me more.
So, what's your number then? I'm saying 7.8.
I said 6.1. I think there's a lot here that I liked, and I think that I could see where there's an audience for this. I just didn't ultimately feel like I was it, but I do think Gillan's performance is really good. And again, we've been talking a lot on the Patreon page about how Oscar Isaac does such a great job of letting you know who he is being at any given moment, whether he's Mark or whether he's Stephen. And you're right, it's a very delicate thing that Gillan is doing to differentiate these characters, but you almost always know exactly which one you're dealing with.
I enjoy her getting to be funny too.
That too,
because like we saw her in The Bubble recently. The Bubble was not funny. This is a much better example of her ability to be funny, because Nebula is such a rigid, angry role. So to get to see her do more is always fun. So you're saying 6.1. I'm saying 7.8. That's a what? It's a 7.
That's a 7.
It's a 7. It's exactly a 7. All right.
Yeah.
Math is fun. So Duel is in theaters this weekend. And then in a few weeks, I want to say May 20th, it'll be on demand and streaming. So go check it out.